Hello, everybody. It is the Dark Conservatarian, and I am actually not driving in my new car right now. I'm actually driving somebody else's car in Mississippi to try to get it delivered off to a family member who is down here at the moment. And so, yeah, there was something on my mind that I just felt like that I had the time to get off my chest about. So just another car vlog rant video. But yeah, I mean, as some of you may have noticed, S-Man has gone on a bit of an unannounced hiatus. Now, what reason he has gone on the unannounced hiatus, I do not know why, but I can only imagine that it is for reasonable purposes, in all honesty. But this is something to do with I guess somebody could say that it is partially drama related, and it's more related to last year than it is this year, but I can only imagine that he is going to get this kind of criticism plenty of times this year, here in 2019, as well as he already did in freaking 2018. And a lot of the things that people would be saying about S-Man is that he is turning left wing. That he was like, they've noticed, you were right wing at one point, but now you are turning more and more left leaning. And this video is just in defense of him. And I'm just putting out my observation on what his political compass really is. Now, as some of you might know, he's like my closest internet friend. I've gotten to know him the most out of everyone on the internet. Like, despite of how at times that relationship can be strenuous, I think it is going to be safe to say that for the near future, at least, he is and will be my closest internet friend. And he is definitely a person that I know the closest for the longest time. Now, as far as him supposedly turning more and more left wing, I can say that. Okay, and I also have to put in perspective that I am considerably more right-leaning than he is. But in my observation, he is still at least center-right. But looking on the surface, if I was like somebody looking from the outside in at S-Man, I would not blame I cannot say that I would not blame anyone, but it's somewhat understandable as to how somebody might mistaken that perception. And in that over the past couple of years of how his beliefs has changed. Like, for example, a prime example that I can think of actually is how his taste in political figures has become almost seemingly a little bit more left wing. Like, for example, when I first met him, he says that back then he wasn't approving of Trump right then and during the 2016 election and whatnot, but it's safe to say that now he has gotten more distasteful of him. But Trump is I don't know, it's neither here nor there because he isn't exactly pinnacle right wing in my opinion. But some other figures that like when I first met him, his opinion on, say, political figures like Ted Cruz and Ronald Reagan seemed to be almost more apathetic, and he would be all like, okay, you like those guys? All right. But now, these days, he seems to almost, I don't know, he says that he hates Ted Cruz. Like, literally, he used that word, hates Ted Cruz, in a live stream once. Now, as much as that puts a pit in my stomach that he says that, but that's what I literally heard him. As far as how much he distastes Reagan, I think he might have said something along the lines that he hates Reagan as well. And he'll laugh or snicker ever so smugly at anybody who says that they like either of those two. And Milo Yiannopoulos, I thought he had always, honestly, disliked Milo Yiannopoulos. But apparently, no, there was a point that he actually liked Milo Yiannopoulos, somewhat at least. But then in at least the recent 8 months or something like that, he's just flat out dislike the guy. Hate him? I don't know. Haven't heard him say I haven't heard him omit that strong a word to define his distaste of Milo. Um, and also, like another figure would be Ben Shapiro. Like when I first met him, that was one of the people that I asked him about. First of all, was what his opinion on Ben Shapiro was, and he said at that time in S Man Live episode 5 that he likes him. Fast forward to present day, he does not hate or even dislikes Ben Shapiro, it seems to me, but there are some implications that he likes him a little bit less than back then when I first met him. And as far as like left-wing characters that he likes, like this is just a sign that his taste in political figures has just, I don't know, seemingly become a little bit more and more left-leaning. Like, for example, he'll be more of a hard ass, it almost seems to me, towards his own side and right-wingers than he will with leftists, except for Owen Cunt Donald. That's one exception that I will mention right there. And he, I don't, not that Joe Biden is really that left-wing, but he says that he likes him, or he would consider him voting for him if he could for president, if Joe was to run for the presidency. And some other characters, I cannot think of any more off the top of my head, although he does dislike Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So there's just to keep things into perspective. I mean, this is just my observations of him. If he wants to like leave a comment underneath to say that I am like wrong in my observation of anything, well then by all means he can. But this is just what I've been noticing. But even with of how his taste in political figures has become just a little bit more left-wing, that does not say that he himself is a leftist. Not even a center leftist, honestly. It's a person's own beliefs that defines whether or not they are left or right-wing, not their taste in political figures, in my opinion. And on to his beliefs, when it comes to something like immigration, it almost seems that I don't know. He almost like he says that he was never in favor of the wall, for example. But now he seems more outspoken against it more than ever. He recently, well, not that recently, but in a live stream with Lapis, almost like omitted of what his beliefs are when it comes to amnesty, on what groups that he would of illegal immigrants that he would give amnesty to. He's against, he says that he's against DACA and that he is for border control. All right, so he's not an open borders advocate. And I don't think he has ever really been in favor of gun control. He certainly isn't in favor of gun control right now, in all honesty, that I have seen. When it comes to trans issues, he's become more and more sympathetic towards intersectional feminists, I would say. Although one could almost say that I have become a little bit more and more sympathetic and lenient towards the left when it comes to trans issues myself. But that's not really the breaking point issue. I guess it's mostly because putting aside our beliefs, S-Man just has a little bit more of controls his language just a little bit more on that issue than a lot of the rest of us and the poor bastards do when it comes to trans people and so on and so forth. What's another example? He no longer considers himself anti-SJW. At first, when he said that he no longer considers himself that, a person could go off on a limb and ask, does that mean that he's an intersectional feminist now? I mean, I almost gone to wondering those questions myself. Is he becoming an intersectional feminist? But no, that's not the case, as I will get to here in a bit. I'm trying to think of some other issues that he has become a little bit more left-leaning on. Oh yeah, I mean, this isn't about his beliefs per se, but expanding on the thing that I was saying about how his taste in political figures has become a little bit more left-leaning. He does seemingly... Sorry about that. He does seemingly tilt more Democrat than Republican, or at least currently. He overall supports the Libertarian Party more than any other party right now, but when in a strict binary between Republican and Democrat, it seems that at the moment that he supports Democrats more than Republicans. And when I first met him, he said that if he could vote, that he would have voted for Evan McMullin, that he actually supported Evan McMullin during the 2016 presidential election. Now, looking at Evan McMullin and comparing him to Trump, Clinton, Stein, and Johnson, McMullin is the closest thing to a traditional Republican that you can get out of all those five. And considering that he supported him over the rest of the four, I almost had the implication that he was like a libertarian who leans more Republican than Democrat. Just to put that into perspective, now, did he actually favor the Republican Party more than the Democrat Party as a whole at any point? I don't know. I mean, he said that at one point, supposedly, that he almost went leaning more Republican, but then he got, I don't know, he then became more center between Republican and Democrat. But onto his actual beliefs that he holds. His right-leaning positions, and really, in a recent live stream, I'm not going to name any names as to who had the perspective that he's supposedly becoming more and more left-leaning, except for one guy who mentioned on a public live stream that he supposedly had no principles, and that is Aircraft Sparky. Aircraft Sparky in a live stream once said to S-Man that he has no principles, that S-Man has no principles. And I really wish that I was in that hangout call, but I was busy, I think, doing laundry or something while listening to that live stream, and it just really pissed me off. I would have got into his shit for saying something like that, because it was just so blatantly dishonest, in all honesty. As much as I might disagree with him on some certain issues, he still is fairly right-leaning. Some of the issues, he isn't unprincipled. He does have his principles. He stands for immigration and border control, even though he doesn't stand for the wall like Sparky. The issues are a little bit more nuanced than that. People can have a little bit of gray with their positions. They don't have to be a full-throated Trumpist Republican or Cruz-like Republican or whatever when it comes to the issue of immigration. They can still support immigration control, but be overall against the wall, say, for expense issues, for example, or something else. I don't know. But this is actually, and by the way, I'm not outright against the wall myself. I'm kind of meh on whether or not the wall should be built myself. But he is outright, S-Man is outright against the funding and construction of the south border wall for the United States. And apparently because of that position, Sparky has the perspective that S-Man is unprincipled, that he's an open borders advocate, when that could not be further from the truth. He is not an open borders advocate, as I have heard him state multiple times that he is not. And other issues that he's principled on. Gun rights. For fuck's sake. When it comes, of all the issues when it comes to S-Man, this is one of the biggest issues that he is more outspoken for, is gun rights. The way that he would be constantly butting heads with Secular Hawk, definitely, because Secular Hawk seems to be the closest thing to a gun grabber within our circles than anyone else. Cold of Ham, he has some of his pro-gun control sympathies, but overall is far more pro-gun rights, gun ownership rights than Secular Hawk. But yeah, that's one of the issues that he's most outspoken for, is for gun rights. And despite, when it comes to economics, aside from his rather weird position, I'm just going to leave it at that, his rather weird position when it comes to taxes, because he disapproves of the Trump and Reagan tax cuts. I think he's said before that he is for lowering taxes, but for some reason he disapproves of the Reagan and Trump tax cuts. So that's a little bit of confusion towards me. But aside from his rather jaded opinion on taxes, he is like next to an ANCAP when it comes to economics. Is almost as far right as you can get, just second to ANCAP, pretty much. I mean, he wants to phase out the welfare system. He doesn't want to completely abolish it immediately, but he just wants to phase it out. And he is for private property rights and so on and so forth. He is pro-capitalism, obviously pro-capitalism. And another thing about him that I will say that he's become a little bit more right-leaning, or at least seems so, is abortion. Like, comparing him to when I first met him, or even like a year before I had first met him, and compare him to now, he seems he's still overall pro-choice, yeah, but he's not as much pro-choice as he was when he made that first video that he made called "Abortion is Not Murder," which he responded to that. He responded to his own video titled "Abortion is Not Murder," criticizing his own past self for what he said. So, just to put that into perspective for you all, at one point I actually thought that he had become a full-on pro-lifer. In all honesty, the hashtag "Yes Man is pro-life" confirmed situation, that's a little bit of a debacle that I don't want to think about. But still, I almost legitimately thought that he was like a pro-lifer claiming to be a pro-choicer, but no, he still overall wants to keep the cap like at 20 to 24 weeks when it comes to how early you can abort. Oh, actually, another thing that he's become, I don't know, he's gone back and forth on is electoral college. When I first met him, he was strictly against electoral college, and he seemed to be slightly for it in early 2018. But then later in 2018 and present day, he is outright against it again. But yeah, he is most definitely a right-wing guy. He's center-right. That's all I have to say about that. From the perspective of somebody looking from the inside out, and somebody who actually tries and asks him about his positions, rather than just assumes just because he says some criticism towards Ben Shapiro, for example, or somebody else like that. That's all I have to say. See you all in the next video. Bye-bye. Oh, and by the way, I also have to just reaffirm that there's going to be no strike force tomorrow afternoon. Like, I think I've already stated this, but I'm just going to say this on my channel. And see, y'all take care. God bless.